again?
No.
No,
Yeah.
he said no. Don't do it.
All right, call the roll, please.
Laura Grauman. Donald Johnson. Bruce McCracken.
Here.
Alan Rich. Robert Shepherd.
Here.
Anthony Caldwell. Gary Rosenthal.
Here.
Joel Reese. Cheryl Bagalo.
Here.
And Chairman Thomas.
Here. Minutes of the regular meeting, September 6, 2018. Is there a second?
Second.
Laura Grauman. Donald Johnson. Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Alan Rich. Robert Shepherd.
Yes.
Cheryl Bagalo.
Yes.
Oh, let the record show Joel Reese just walked in, sorry. Joel Reese, you can vote on the next thing. And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Resolutions, Muslim Foundation, ZBA 17-00012, amending plans. Do we have a motion?
Move it.
Laura Grauman. Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Alan Rich. Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
Cheryl Bagalo.
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Gennaro Constable and Jack's Gennaro LLC, ZBA 18-00004.
Move it.
Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
Joel Reese. And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Vouchers, Marriott, Callahan and Blair, Tuan versus Franklin Township, $2,670.34. Need a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Extension of time, Franklin Associates, Franklin 2 Associates Limited, appealing a zoning decision. This is carried to January 17th, 2019. In the hearings section of the agenda, we have a number of announcements. Hugo Gonzalez, Ingrid Herrera, ZBA 18-00013, certification of pre-existing non-conforming use. The applicant contends the house had a second-floor apartment and first-floor single-family home. House is serviced by 2 separate meters, contains 2 separate electric service panels at 13 Martine Street, Somerset, Block 480, Lot 21 in the R10 zone, and this application is withdrawn. I thought.
Mr. Chairman, let me explain that one briefly. Earlier this week, we received an email from the applicant's attorney pointing us to a resolution of this board back in 2002, granting them this exact certification. So they had proved to the board in 2002 that it was a 2-family house back then.
Okay.
Neither we nor they were aware of it until then.
And that won't be coming back then. Praise Presbyterian Church, ZBA 17-00028, use variance and site plan which the applicant's requesting to expand the parking lot with additional 115 spaces, provide a new stormwater basin, 75 by 62 feet, asphalt fence, basketball court, use the previous residence for religious purposes at 15 Cedar Grove Lane, Somerset, Block 436.08, lots 31 and 31 in the R40 zone. This is carried to December 20th, and no notification is needed. If you're here for that, it will not be heard. New Singular Wireless, ZBA 18-00011, conditional use variance and site plan which the applicant seeks approval for the placement of a 150-foot tall telecommunications tower in the rear of the property at 134 Copper Mine Road, Princeton, Block 11.01, Lot 60.01 in the RR5 zone. This is carried to November 1st with no other notification. On the second page, we have the applications now that we will hear. Forgive my pronunciation. Tualope Adeli, ZBA 18-00012. This is the variance which the applicant seeks approval for setback variances needed for the existing above-ground pool and shed that were done prior to their purchase without permits, 181 Hillcrest Ave, Somerset, Block 303, Lot 8.01 in the R10 zone. We have a representative here for that. Do we have one? Come on up.
Mr. Chairman, before the applicant speaks, I'll give a summary to the board. You have a report from the Technical Review Committee in your packet dated August 28th. As indicated, the applicant seeking setback variance is related to the existing pool and the shed that's located in the back right side corner of the property. The applicant recently purchased the home. Tax records indicate the last sale was in October of last year, September of last year. And then they became aware after the fact that the existing pool and the shed were placed on the property by a prior property owner without permits. We went back and we can kind of look at and see historical aerial photos. You can go back to at least 2007 and see that that pool and the shed existed at least going back to 2007. The setbacks that are required are indicated in our report. And also in the report, you can see the photos that show the location of the current situation and going back to 2007 showing the same situation, as well as the existence of a 6-foot-high stockade fence that surrounds the property. That's our report.
Okay, first we'll swear you in.
Okay, I need to swear you in. Could you raise your right hand?
You need to,
You use-
Yes.
grab one of those. Make sure it's on. Yes.
You swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth. Your name and address, please, right into the mic.
Tolulokpa Adelea, 181 Hillcrest Avenue, Somerset, New Jersey, 08873.
Thank you.
Is the description Mr. Healy gave of what we're here for tonight basically what you would be testifying to?
Yes.
Is there anything you want to add to it?
Well, we recently upgraded the fence to enclose the entire backyard. Previously, the old fence had 2 entrances, one on the side of the pool, but we've closed that. So there's only one entrance now on the opposite side of the home, not on the side of the pool.
Mark, there's in the review comments, I think, look at that. In the review comments, it says if the board is inclined to approve the variances, the board may wish to condition the approval on application obtaining necessary permits and continue to enclose the yard with a solid 6-foot fence. It seems that she's just testified that she's done that.
What the recommendation is that they obtain the necessary permits with respect to the pool and the shed, which I believe they're in the process of doing.
Okay.
And then the second one is more of a continuing condition that if the board is inclined to approve it, one of the mitigating things may be, well, make sure since it's in the front yard, since the pool's in the front yard, you need to screen it by a fence. So she's testified.
Didn't she just say she testified?
So she said she put it in there, and you could condition that they have to keep it there. That's the
Got it.
recommendation.
Any other board questions? We're open to the public. Is there anyone here wishing to ask a question or make a statement on about this application? Okay, there are no people coming forward. We'll close. Any comments from the board or motions?
Well, it seems like it's pretty straightforward. I move that we approve this application and condition it upon her obtaining the necessary permits. And since the yard has already been enclosed with a fence, that a condition of this application is that fence remain in place and in good condition.
We have a second?
Second.
Laura Grauman? Yes. Donald Johnson? Yes. Bruce McCracken?
Yes.
Alan Rich? Robert Shepherd?
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell? Yes. Chairman Thomas?
Yes. Now, I believe you have an announcement or...
When you come up to for anybody here, there's a lot of people here, so if you have to speak, when you go up to the mic, please make sure that you speak clearly, state your name, spell it, and give your address. And for any of the professionals going up to the table, there's a sign-in sheet for you to please write your name and your
profession and your address. You don't need to.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay, the next application, Reverend Ursula Cargill, this is ZBA 16-00025. This applicant seeks certification of a pre-existing non-conforming use. The applicant contends that the one-bedroom apartment in the finished portion of her basement was constructed at the time the house was constructed, with the house being constructed prior to the enactment of Township zoning ordinance at 160 Bennington Parkway, Franklin Park, Block 38, Lots 6 and 7 in the R20 zone. And you are the applicant, or you're representing? Who's the?
I'm the applicant.
Ma'am, I need to swear you in. Could you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Can we have your name and address, please?
Ursula Cargill, 160 Bennington Parkway, Franklin Park, New Jersey, 08823.
Thank you.
Do we need a briefing?
I mean, usually we give a brief for relatively simple. I think the applicant here needs to present her case to the board.
Okay, we need to have proof that this, not only that the house was, says the house was constructed prior to the enactment of the zoning ordinance, but we need to have proof that it was, you want this to be certified as a two-family house?
No, my main concern is to document that the work that was done in the basement was done before I purchased the house, and at the time that the owner who did build the house constructed the house, he did the work.
Let me explain, and this has been explained to Ms. Cargill. Certification for pre-existing non-conforming use. In order for this board to grant that and basically make that a legal two-family, is you need to prove that it was a two-family house prior to zoning and has continued in that fashion uninterrupted until now. And you need to prove that to the board. Not that it was there when you bought it, that it was there before zoning in 1958.
I was told by the wife of the person who built the house that the work in the basement, the apartment, was done at the time that he constructed the house in 1950. And when I purchased the house in, I think it was 2005, the listing said that it was an in-law apartment. So it was, I took her word for it, and I looked at the listing, and the listing said that it was there.
Okay, we need to have substantial testimony that it was there. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, but it sounds like you're telling us what someone told you.
Well, she's got affidavits to that effect.
What is your documentation? I see it here.
So I had someone help me with this packet because it was extremely confusing. And apparently the due diligence that was necessary to provide all of the affidavits was not done. So there are two affidavits in there that are questionable that I asked to have pulled from the application.
Which affidavits are those?
There is an addendum from Denise Schoenfeld, I think. It was Denise Welch, that's where I know her, and also from Raleigh, and I don't recall the last name.
The Denise Welch,
Yes.
and there's a James Moisey,
No.
and a Samantha Smith.
No.
There's a Raleigh Williams, too.
Raleigh Williams. The addendum. So I asked to have them taken out.
Denise and Raleigh.
Yeah, the addendums.
Now, James Moisey also has an amendment.
Right. I I could have asked him to be here, and if I can have an opportunity to have him come, I can have him come and testify, but I didn't do that today.
Okay, well, just to clarify, we did receive a request to take out of the record the one affidavit by Denise Schlaubacher. The other ones, and we have the emails to that effect, you didn't ask for the others. And as I informed Ms. Cargill, we do not have the ability to take something out of the record once the hearing has been noticed for hearing. So it's, Ms. Cargill presented this to you. Can you explain to the board why you want these taken out of the record?
I want them taken out because the help that I got to put all of the supporting documentation together, I'm not sure that the help went through all of the steps necessary to secure the proper amendment to the affidavit. I say that because I was told that and the initial affidavit needed to be amended to specifically state that it was an apartment and not that it had like the eat-in facility and living, etc. So I had requested help in getting the affidavit amended, and the help I got, I don't trust that all of the amendments were clear, but I did get a chance to speak to Jim. I got a chance to speak to Samantha, and I was able to verify their amendments, but I was not able to verify Denise and Raleigh.
Okay, so essentially, what you're saying is that it's not that those other two were not accurate, but that you have not been able to verify them.
Exactly. So because I was able to verify the others, I'm confident in what's stated there. And if I need to bring Jim Moise into another session, I'd be happy to do that.
And if I could just jump in here, ordinarily, affidavits are not enough. If the person is available, they should be brought in because you can't cross-examine an affidavit. But if they come in and they testify, then the board can ask them questions to clarify their testimony. So if this applicant is willing to bring these individuals in to testify, that may be beneficial to the board.
Okay, and I'm not sure if I can add an individual that I also know her parents lived about a block from the house, and they also know that the basement was there when the house was constructed.
You can, if we are adjourning this matter so that you can bring these people in, you can bring in whatever testimony you want to support your position.
Okay, may I ask a question? Can I bring in the listing from the realtor as well? I mean, do you think that would be beneficial?
The listing from the realtor from when you bought your house would not help the board at all.
Oh.
You need to have testimony from as to what existed prior to the adoption of the ordinances in 1958.
58?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, hello, right over here. One other thing that's important, I've looked at a couple of these affidavits, and they're written by people who were born in like 1959, and the information in them really is hearsay. It's something that they learned from somebody else. And I'm afraid that the only people that you're going to be able to rely upon are people who were competent adults that were old enough to know what was going on prior to 1958. So this sort of getting somebody's child who was born in 1960 to come and give you an affidavit is not going to be helpful.
So then I would have to bring in someone who is what age?
That's right. Well, if somebody was 15 years old back then or 12 and can tell us what was going on in that apartment, then we can listen to them, but not somebody who was 1.
Okay.
That's a problem.
Okay. So what do you, I can do the math. I'll ask someone to help me with the math.
Okay, then, how,
Mr. Chairman, there are members of the public here if you wish to hear from them.
before we set a date for rehearing it, are there any people in the public who would like to ask a question or make a comment to this point concerning this application? Come up to the podium, please. Give us your name, address, and we'll swear you in since there may be a statement involved.
Sir, I need to swear you in. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
I do.
Your name and address, please.
Raleigh Williams, 155
Make
Bennington
sure you
Parkway,
speak in.
Franklin Park,
There
New
you go.
Jersey. That's
Pick it up and pull it right to your mouth.
Pick it up.
Yep. They're not going to bite you.
I don't want to break it. Okay, real close.
Real close. Good. You got it, Raleigh.
Yeah, well, Ursula come over to our house. I live next door to her. And she wanted me to come and sign this paper that Mr. and Mrs. Welch, when they built the house, finished off the cellar. And they did. That's true. So I went and I signed this paper that they done it, you know, because I knew them. And then I come to find out that there's another amendment to this with my name on it. I did not sign it. You know, I didn't. And I have never seen Mr. and Mrs. Welch have anybody live in that house except their kids. And that's all I got to say.
Okay, well, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Sure. In other words, when did the Welches leave that house? When did they move out?
They moved out right before she moved in.
Okay, so it's your testimony that there was never anyone living in an apartment in the basement?
In the basement.
Okay.
Yeah, that's mine. Yep.
So just so the, over here, just so the record's clear, you're referring to two different affidavits. There's one that you signed, it's entitled affidavit on the top, and in the bottom it's saying it was signed on 14th of June, 2016. I believe that's the one you said you did sign.
That's right.
And then there's an amendment dated 21st of June, 2016, and that's the one you're saying you did not sign.
That's right.
Okay, I just want to make sure the board's aware of the two different affidavits. Sir, when you were, have you been in the home?
Yeah, I was in the home. I helped Mrs. Welch put her air conditioning in the downstairs bedrooms there.
And how, approximately what year would have been the first time you were in the home, roughly?
Probably 1970.
And what was in the basement? Can you recall what was in the basement at that time?
Yeah, 2 bedrooms.
Okay. Was there any kitchen facilities at that point?
No, it was all upstairs.
Okay, what about bathroom facilities?
I didn't see a bathroom either.
What about was the unit, or I'm sorry, was the basement connected to the main portion of the house?
Well, you just, from the main part of the house, you just walk down some stairs. It was all open. It's all open. And then they got a sliding glass door.
Going out to the outside?
Going outside, yeah.
Was there any door between the upstairs and the basement, to your recollection?
No door I ever seen. No, it wasn't there.
That was at 1970. Were you in the house anytime after that?
Yeah, every winter, every summer, we'd put the air conditioner in for her. I was in there quite a few times.
We have photos of the basement, and it looks like there is kitchen, some eat-in facilities, and there is a bathroom with a tub. Do you know if the Welches put those in? And if so, do you have any approximate time frame of when they may have put that in?
No, I don't think the Welches put that in.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Can I ask him a question?
Yes.
Okay, you said that there was a sliding glass door. Where was the sliding glass door?
It was facing the back of the house.
So instead of an outside door, that was a sliding door?
It was a sliding 6-foot Anderson window, it looked like.
Okay, the doorway to the outside is 36 inches. There's no sliding door there.
He was testifying to what he saw in 1970. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I was asking him what was there in 1970, which was when he said he was first in the house.
Right.
You're also saying that there was no bathroom downstairs?
I didn't see a bathroom down there. I didn't have to go.
Okay, so you're not saying that it wasn't there, you're saying you didn't see it.
That's exactly right.
Okay, and then you said that there was no, kitchen or eat-in facility?
No eating facility whatsoever down there.
So the original affidavit that you signed that said that there was a eat-in facility, can you speak to that?
No, I don't think that my original affidavit said that.
The one that you did sign,
The one I did sign doesn't say anything about a kitchen.
does it say anything about an eat-in facility?
I don't see none. Let's see. Yeah, eating factory.
It says eat-in facilities and full bathroom.
Okay, and you testified that that's your signature on the first one?
Yeah, on the first one. It's not on the second one. I don't know who put that one on there.
Okay, like I said to the board, I received help with the amendments because the original application that I turned in 2016, I was told by the planning board that that application was not sufficient, that it needs to have an amendment to the affidavit. So I went and got help, and the help that I did get, as I testified earlier, that I could not confirm that the due diligence was done with Raleigh Williams' amendment or with Denise's amendment. So I asked to have those taken out of the record.
Well, also, I don't know if the question is relevant, but it also makes me wonder, it's a notarized document and supposed to have identification for something like.
I think so. So I'm going to ask, I wasn't sure exactly what process was used to confirm all of the amendments, because I was a little, I wouldn't say upset, but I was definitely not in the best state of mind to still deal with this packet. It was extremely overwhelming. So I got help, and the help that I get wasn't as helpful as it could have been.
I also noticed that one notary is in Somerset, right, and the one on the amendment that we're talking about is in Ocean County.
Yes. So I spoke like I said, I spoke with Jim Moise and with Samantha Smith. I was able to confirm both of their amendments, but they're both under the age. But there are people in my home church at 6 Mile Run that were friends with the Welches from I guess from before the house was built. So I'm just hoping that some of them are still alive. I'm going to ask them to come in and testify.
I think that that's clearly the way to go, and as our attorney suggested, bringing the people in, when you have notarized documents, and one of the signatures, one of the individuals involved said he didn't sign it, but it's notarized, kind of leaves open to me whether any of it is valid, because if that's notarized and it's a signed signature, the rest of it could be the same.
I agree. I mean, I can't argue with it. That's why I was forthcoming in the beginning.
Okay, we'll finish. Is there any other member of the public would like to say anything or ask a question? We need your name and address. And
Yes. And
Nancy Williams, 155 Bennington Parkway, Franklin Park, New Jersey, 08823. I'm Raleigh's wife of 38 years.
okay, I need to swear you in. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
It is.
Thank you.
I have lived next door to the Ursula, but the Welshes also since 1980. And I was there the day Ursula came over with the affidavit for Raleigh to sign. And she came into the house. The only thing she said was that she would like to have Raleigh verify the fact that the basement was a finished basement when the Welshes built the house. And that was all she asked. There was no asking about an apartment in the basement. There was nothing about a two-family house verification or certification, and that was it. And this, on the affidavit, is my handwriting. I put his name, his birth date, and the address, and they went off to Wells Fargo, I believe, bank, to have it notarized. The next week, we never saw, was when this amendment was supposedly signed, never saw or heard anything about this amendment constructed with a fully functioning apartment that was later used. Raleigh never saw this. I never saw it. I never heard anything about it. And the notary on this, I believe, is the woman that was living with Ursula when she bought the house in 2007, Ren Stevens. And I have been in the Welsh's basement myself, and it was a finished basement, nothing remarkable about it, and there was not a kitchen in that basement.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you. Any others wishing to speak? Okay, we'll close that portion of the meeting. I think the course to take is to adjourn.
Oh,
We
one
need
more,
to-
one more.
You have more public.
Oh, you have another one? Oh, come on. We'll open again.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth? Please take the microphone and speak right into it, and give us your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Deborah Gaglione, and I live at 150 Bennington Parkway, Franklin Park, New Jersey, 08823. I know Denise Welch. She's just a very lovely person, very smart and intelligent woman who lives in Illinois. That's Mr. and Mrs. Welch's daughter. I've spoken to her on the phone, and she also remembers signing in Illinois an affidavit to the effect that the basement was there. She does not remember signing an additional document. She said her signature with the notary is coming from Illinois, where she lives now. The second affidavit that she was supposed to have signed and notarized is in New Jersey, Somerset, New Jersey, somewhere. And she has been telling me that she's not ever done such a thing. She was in the state of New Jersey in June of 2016 for a funeral of a friend that she knew growing up there, also in that off of Bennington Parkway. That's all I need to say. I know that I was in the basement, I guess in 1980s, mid-1980s. There is a toilet with one of the flushes that you pull from the top. There is a partition for a bedroom, because there was a bedroom there. Her grandson stayed with Mrs. Welch after her husband passed away, and that's where he would stay, in the basement. They would eat their family dinners upstairs in the upstairs portion of the house, because that's where the kitchen was. I did not ever see a kitchen, but I can't say for sure, but I've never seen a kitchen in the basement. I have seen the toilet with the pull flush from the top. And that's all I need to say. I don't know if you've got any questions for me.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Anyone else wish to speak? All right.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth? Speaking right into the microphone.
I do.
Give us your name and address, please.
Eric Hambrecht, 68 Meadow Ave, Franklin Park, New Jersey, 08823. We live right next door to Ursula. We bought the house in 2004. I knew Mrs. Welch briefly before she moved. I can't say I was in the basement. All I know is that I've never seen, anybody going in and out of there except Mrs. Welsh until she left. Now there's people going in and out of there all the time. Different people I've seen, people I've never seen before. It seems to be like a rental property that's turning over person after person after person over the past, 10 years. But I can't speak of what was in the basement before, but all I know is the activity that goes on there now. And that's all I can speak of. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else now?
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Could I have your name and address, please?
Name is Peter Berger, 76 Meadow Avenue, Franklin Park, New Jersey, 08823. I live 3 houses down from Ursula. Lovely woman, never had a problem. My major concern is she wants to turn a ranch house into a 2-family house. It was never constructed that way. It's just a regular average ranch house. But the problem is if it goes through as a rezone, I'm looking at a dual lot across the street from my house. If that goes to be a 2-family house and the people sell across the street from me, I'll be looking at 2 38-foot 2-family houses across the street when a builder comes in and takes over the property.
Sir, that's not the way this works.
Well,
Let me
that's
explain.
that's my concern. I'm worried, the big thing is she wants to turn this into a 2-family house.
Just let me explain what the law, okay? Whether or not she's able to prove that this particular house, what she needs to prove, again, it's really relatively straightforward. She needs to prove that that it was there before zoning existed. So basically that it's grandfathered in on that particular house, on that particular lot. The neighborhood is a single-family zone. This is not to change the zoning of the neighborhood. It's not to change the zoning of her house. It's the zoning is single-family.
Okay,
She needs to prove, let me just quickly finish, that it was a 2-family house before zoning came into effect in 1958 and has been a 2-family unit all the way through to today. If she's able to prove that to the board, that has absolutely no bearing on the zoning on the bearing of any other property in the neighborhood.
So that would have to come under the construction code when the house was built. So the windows would have to be a certain size, the egresses would have to be. So basically, if you're looking at a ranch house with the regular basement windows, under the construction codes, that doesn't qualify as a 2-family house.
Yeah, but
What she needs to meet in terms of code is she'll have to meet with, that's not
But that
what
would,
the board is
the
discussing.
zoning laws didn't come into 1958. So if she's going to go
Whatever-
prior to 1958, she's going to have to use building construction codes prior to that says it was a 2-family house.
Whatever codes are applicable, she would have to comply with.
Sir,
Now, let me ask you this real quick. Are those records available, those construction records?
You'd have to speak to the construction official.
They're not available.
I'm not evading the question. I'm not
No,
going to
I-
answer to construction
no, I
codes. We
understand.
have a construction official that's an expert in that.
how long have you lived on Meadow?
22 years.
Well, do the math for me. Or were you there in 1980?
No, I was there in 1997.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you. Any others?
Could
My
you
name is Jack Green. I live at 149 Bennington Parkway, Franklin Park, New Jersey.
grab the microphone with your left hand?
08823.
Hand up, please. You swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I've never been.
You got to speak right into the microphone.
I've moved in the house in 1980. I've been there 30 years. 1988. I've been there 30 years. I've known it with the Welches. It was a single-family house, and I got to say something because nobody's bringing this up. She's online and she's running an Airbnb out of that place right now, and the traffic and people peeing on the lawns, and she's got cars and her guests driving over Raleigh's property.
Okay, that's a different issue, maybe not
I have to
relevant
bring this up.
for tonight. We
Okay.
need to know
I've never been in the house.
information concerning when or if you have any knowledge that this was
In
existing
1988,
before
when I moved there, it was a
1958.
single-family house. And in 2007, I believe that's when she purchased it, it was listed as a single-family house. possible mother-daughter, and that's what I think she's talking about.
You can't ever depend on real estate listings,
I know that.
all right?
Thank you.
Any other people wish to speak? Okay, now we will close the public portion. Before we even go any further, I think the best course of action for you may be to have us adjourn this, see if you can get, if you wish to come back, the information that we need. As our attorney suggested, bringing people that we can talk to and question, and not listen to somebody talking to somebody else, and I heard this or I heard that. I would think if we finish this application and went to a vote, I personally don't see any concrete evidence that you've established this, what you want to establish before 1958. I would have to question right off the bat all the affidavits at this point. I also think would recommend that you might consider having a lawyer represent you. Is there any comment from the board, or?
No, that all sounds like great advice.
Maybe you can rethink tactic that you're going to take, and maybe then contact the planning office, and we could, if you want to go forward with this, we can then offer a date to reschedule.
I do want to go forward with it because I was told by Vivian that the basement was upgraded with eat-in facilities, and her son stayed down there, and his son stayed down there. And although my neighbors are objecting to rezoning and what have you, they're saying that that's exactly true. But what I need to verify is that that it was upgraded before 1958. And I
don't know that you have to show that it was upgraded. What you have to show is that it was being used this way for 1958.
And continuously until the time, until now.
May I ask a question then? Because I've been trying to find out what the best way to complete the application through the zoning office. If her relatives are living in the basement, and does that mean continuous? Because that's what she said, that her son and her grandson live down in the basement.
Ma'am, I'm the board attorney.
Okay.
I can't give you legal advice.
Okay.
And that's why Vice Chair or Chairman suggested you may want to consult an attorney
I will.
to find those answers.
And let me speak to that briefly. I mean, it's also not our job to help the applicant make their application. It's their obligation to make their case to you. With that said, when Ms. Cargill said, that the planning board, I think she meant the planning staff, had indicated to her that her first affidavits were probably not going to be sufficient because the first set of affidavits didn't speak to it being an apartment. The first set of affidavits spoke to it being a finished basement with a bedroom, etc. And that's not the case here. The case was it a separate unit? And then that second, I think that the second set, the amendment to the affidavits, was her attempt to address that issue. So we have been trying somewhat to kind of have her present the information that you would need to make an informed decision. So I just again want to say once again, it's not whether it was a finished basement. It's not whether it had a bedroom in there or not. Is it two separate apartments, two separate dwelling units? That's what you need to prove.
And that's why I think a lawyer could best advise you when to come back and what you need to come back and present the proof that we need.
Thank you. I'll definitely do that, and I'd like to continue the application to completion.
If the board announces a new date tonight, the applicant would not have to renotice. If we do not pick a date tonight and she comes back at a later date, she would have to renotice for that hearing.
All right, we could pick a date.
But may I say something? My mother is bedridden and in the Bahamas, and I need to go and visit with her. So I've already made arrangements to do that. So when you do, if you decide to pick a date, prayerful, because
But
I
we're
can't.
dealing with a date right now.
I can't deal with anything until after I get back.
You're getting a chance to give input into the date, and I think what we're missing here is that this is going to take you a little longer than, you may have time to do all the things that you're talking about. I don't think this is going to be a 2-week or a 1-month turnaround.
Thank you.
What date are you going to see your mother?
I'm going the middle of November.
Okay. We can set you up for December 6th.
Is there any way to get something at the turn of the year? Because I know that in December, we're planning to do something with her if she's still with us.
Can't we always cancel and then extend the date December 6th, and then that gets around renoticing?
I would prefer if we set a date this year, and then, as the chairman stated, if she's not able to put it together, postpone it again. There is a zoning violation issue we're trying to resolve one way or the other. So I'd like to keep it at least moving through and try to get to a decision sooner than later.
If you're not ready, there is an opening or opportunity to change the date and move it later. But it's better to keep the dates more current than a couple of months out.
I don't want to be penalized for canceling.
You won't be, no, you will not be penalized for canceling. People adjourn their applications when they're not prepared all the time. So we can set it up for, what was it, December 1st?
December 6th.
December 6th, and at that point, if it turns out ahead of time that you know you're not going to be able to
Already
do it.
know that, because when I get back from visiting with my mother in the middle of November, December 6th is 2 weeks away.
Well,
Yeah,
you
that's
can-
fine. Then you call and you say, I'm not ready.
You call and say, I'm not ready, can you give me another date?
And you do have 3 weeks before you go away to perhaps talk to an attorney and gather some of the
I'm
information
going
you need.
to do that.
Okay, we'll start it tentatively, not tentatively. The date now is December 6th. Neighbors and everybody else might want to look, as it gets closer to that, by calling the planning office to see if the date is changed, because you won't get another notice in the mail. Okay?
Oh,
For
I
this
won't-
matter-
Okay, thank you.
This matter, Cargill, is adjourned until December 6th with no further notice by the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Next, Surinder and Rano Sinj, ZBA 17-00020. Okay, this applicant is seeking a variance due to going 1,070 square feet over previously improved impervious coverage at 3 Buell Street, Somerset, Block 83, Lot 1.04 in the R20 zone. I am just been notified it's being carried to January 3rd. Is that right?
2019, obviously.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, we presented testimony in this application in January of 2018. At that time, the matter was adjourned because there were some engineering questions. There have been numerous meetings between my client and the township, between the property owner and the township, and recently I received a letter from the adjoining property owner of the township. There's still some unresolved issues that I think are best attempted to be resolved by and between the parties rather than to have them discussed at the board level. So I would respectfully request that this matter be carried to January 3rd, 2019. I believe you will need an extension of time, so for the record, I am granting to the board an extension of time within which to act until January 31st, 2019. We will be having some meetings with the township staff and the parties between now and then to hopefully come to some sort of a resolution.
Okay, if you're here for that, that takes care of that application. The other one for this evening, Somerset Hotel, ZBA 18-00003. This is a site plan with a use variance in which the applicant wants to construct a 4-story, 128-room hotel in the northwest portion of the site, with the existing hotel on the site remaining 110 Davidson Avenue, Somerset, Block 467, Lot 1.01 in the corporate business
Correct.
zone.
Looks like this whole thing is going to be amended.
Mr. Langford, it's my understanding you're going to put on one witness tonight? None?
No, we're putting on all our witnesses. Now, my discussion with Mr. Thomas were in the event that it was getting late, I would have liked to at least start with one witness because my architect flew from Florida to testify. But obviously, given it's 8:30, I hope we can get all our witnesses on and complete this application this evening.
Right, at the time of our discussion, we didn't anticipate the previous application being bumped back to January.
Which I think was a good idea.
Every once in a while, I do have a good idea.
Mark, how does he plug in?
Right.
While we're trying to get,
Vince, do you know what's going on here? Can you give us some help here instead of conversing with the other people in the present? We're trying to get his computer hooked up.
Mr. Chairman, while everybody's trying to set everything up, perhaps I can just go into a little bit of background before I call my first witness. For the record, first of all, Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. As the board is probably well aware, this is the site that was for many, many years known as the Marriott, which then had changed numerous flags, the last flag being the Crown Plaza. I'll get to that in a second. In 2013, the applicant acquired the property, and in 2013, their original game plan was to renovate the existing hotel in phases and also come in for the application for a new hotel. In starting to do the renovations, since the hotel was a rather old hotel, in order to bring the hotel to code compliance, they got to the point where they decided that they might as well just shut the whole hotel down and undertake the renovations. The hotel, the original hotel, has been closed since 2016. By the time we finish the renovations to the existing hotel, there will be $25 million invested in the renovations of the existing hotel. As part of the renovations to the existing hotel, there was, in fact, the removal of approximately 250 guest rooms. There were two wings of the hotel closest to Davidson Avenue which have been removed. All of the renovations that are taking place are being done as administrative approvals with the township. All permits have been obtained, and we've been working with the township to do those renovations. The plan of the The answer is, as far as that hotel, it will be reopening hopefully fairly soon. We are negotiating with one of the hotel chains to brand it, but we don't have a signed agreement yet, so we can't disclose the name of the brand of that hotel tonight. But it will be a branded name hotel. That's all I can tell you. When we took out the 200 and some rooms from the, I'm sorry, my math was wrong. We took out 150 rooms from the existing hotel. The applicant is now proposing to replace those rooms with a new 4-story, 128-room hotel, which is the site plan that we are proposing this evening. The new hotel will be an extended stay. It will not be a full-service hotel like the existing hotel and like the old Marriott Crown Point was. This would be an extended stay hotel, so there will be 2 different products on the site. The new hotel, as I said, is 128 rooms, so as a result of what we're doing, we're actually decreasing the number of rooms on the site. With respect to the existing hotel, all of the common areas, the restaurants, the banquet rooms, the meeting rooms are all unchanged. Nothing, they've all been redone, they've all been renovated, but they remain unchanged as far as square footage and location. So everything else in the old hotel is all being redone. All the rooms are being redone, but the square footages don't change. With respect to the new hotel, which we're seeking site plan approval for tonight, I do have the architect to go over the new hotel. I do have the site engineer to go over the site plan. And I also have the site engineer is also a licensed planner to discuss the D variance that we are seeking. And I have Ms. Dolan to deal with the traffic issues. With that background, I'd like to have our architect sworn in, please.
Grab the microphone with your left hand, please. Raise your right. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
I do.
Name and address, please.
Kenneth Schoenfeld, 3608 Southwest 1st Avenue in Cape Coral, Florida, 33914.
Ken, you can have a seat. Ken, can you give the board the benefit of your educational and professional background?
Yes, education-wise, I'm a graduate of Kent State University in Ohio, way back in the 80s. I have been licensed in several states, and I currently work in Fort Myers, Florida. And our clients have brought us to this project here in New Jersey.
You've been licensed as what?
An architect.
And how long have you been practicing architecture?
I'm licensed in 1991.
Okay. And have you, prior to this application, designed and other hotels?
Yes, we are on our 3rd modification to a prototypical Marriott hotel, and briefly to answer your question, yes, we've done 2 or 3 hotels in the Florida area.
Okay, and you've done work for Marriott before?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the new hotel that is in question is a Marriott product?
It is a Marriott Town Place Suites. It's designed to be, as we've heard, an extended stay facility. It has 4 stories.
Do you have
I do.
all right.
You want to start with this?
Yeah, why don't we start with that? That's obviously the exterior of the building.
This gives you an idea of the flavor of the exterior building, and again, Marriott corporate, like all the other chains, and whether they're food, motel industry, what have you, they're very particular about their product, and so we start with a prototypical product, which is basically what you're seeing here, and this will be the design for the motel here as well.
Okay, and when you say it's an extended stay motel, what does that mean?
The rooms are equipped with, essentially, long story short, they're equipped with a kitchenette area.
And the anticipated stay of their guests is not usually an overnight. They're there for a couple of days, either on business or visiting.
It's intended to make them comfortable for a period of at least a couple of days or even up to a week or 2, however long they need to be there.
Okay, and although you're not involved in the renovations of the existing hotel, you're familiar with the existing hotel, and this is a different prototype and different model than the existing hotel, is that correct?
This is a different project than the existing hotel. That is very correct.
Okay, and you heard my opening remarks, there are 128 rooms, is that correct?
That is correct.
And are there any public spaces in this hotel? By that, I mean, is there a public dining room? Is there a public bar, public restaurant, or anything that is open to the public? Or is this hotel being, any common spaces, are they there for the amenities of the guests of the hotel?
For the guests only, no public spaces.
Okay, so, and there will be on the first level, and we've provided to the township floor plans of the hotel, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And the first level has the public spaces?
Does.
Can you bring that up, please?
I thought he said there were no public spaces.
Common spaces, I'll change the word, common spaces for the guests. There are no public restaurants, there's no public bar.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
This building looks much bigger than all you did in the current hotel, because I pass it every day. Been watching this demolition and construction very closely, wondering what the hell they're doing there. And all they did was chop off part of two wings. This building is much bigger in the picture than the chopping off of two wings. So you're not replacing 120 rooms with 128 rooms. You have a whole new building, and I was on the site. It looks like the site is going to be very crowded with another building in the back.
Mr. Reese, if you will wait for our site engineer, he will present testimony that we're actually reducing impervious coverage, and we are actually reducing building coverage than was there when the old hotel was there. So we'll get to that.
Could you clarify something? I may have missed it. This is the new construction, or this is how the existing hotel has been converted?
The plans that you are looking at now are the plans for the new hotel.
That's what I thought.
Right.
Okay, so it doesn't exist yet.
This does not exist yet.
Fine, okay.
And all of the renovations to the existing hotel are being done and handled through admin approvals, and they're ongoing. I mean, we'll go over some of those with the testimony of Mr. Ford, but basically what we're here tonight is to seek the site plan to add the new hotel and to create a separate lot for the new hotel.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify it.
Okay. Okay. All right. You have the first floor plan of the hotel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and can you just take the board through the entrance and to the common spaces so that the board understands what the areas are that are basically common or areas available to all of the renters?
This is much like many hotels that you would be in the sense that the front entry is here, and you'll see that relative to the site plan once that's presented. You come into a front desk area. I hope you can see my cursor there. That's probably better than me standing in front, but if you'd like me to, I can. This is a lobby area here. Here is a buffet area, no kitchen area, just your typical continental breakfast area. Seating for that breakfast area would be in here. To the back here is a fitness area. Laundry is over in here as far as the house goes. There's a small meeting room right here. The rest of the first floor plan consists of 23 rooms.
Okay, and then the balance of the rooms are on the second, third, and fourth floor, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and you indicated that one of the amenities is there is a fitness room in this hotel. There is also, as shown on the site plan, there will be a pool in the back of this hotel for the guests. Is that correct?
That's correct, to the rear, right behind the fitness area.
Okay.
Indoor pool, outdoor pool?
Outdoor, sir.
Handicap rooms?
Yes, there are.
And with respect to the building itself, if we can go back to the exterior, can you briefly describe to the board the materials, the colors of the proposed building?
Here just represents a straight-up two-dimensional elevation. I just want you to see this. And that is the front and the back of the building. You can see the signage on the front and back of the building. Here are the ends of the building.
What's it made out of?
Our construction classification is going to be all non-combustible. It's going to basically be a block precast plank concrete floor. That's the basic construction method of it.
But what is the exterior going to be made out of?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well,
we'll just keep asking questions till we get to an answer I like.
The exterior finishes will be, we can go over that here, but there'll basically be an EFIS system, which is an exterior insulation finish system, and so that's basically a synthetic stucco appearance. There are a couple other finishes on the building. So all the synthetic stucco areas, and you may have seen this if you've seen buildings up under construction in the area. Basically, it's a foam panel that's put on the outside, and then there's a fiberglass mesh, and a synthetic stucco is put on that. So all these areas in here will be that synthetic stucco. These areas here, such as this location and these, are cement panels for accent. The whole building will be basically a natural warm gray to tan tones.
And again, pictures are not always 100% representative of the actual colors. Your testimony is that the building will consist of grays and tans, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the existing building that is being renovated is a darker gray, correct?
Yes,
okay.
That is correct.
And aesthetically, you don't want to make the two buildings exactly the same, and they are not going to be the same, but is there, in your opinion, a compatibility or synergy between the two buildings?
There certainly isn't a conflict, I don't believe, between them. As it turns out, between the prototype for Marriott, there are some angular features in the roof line, as you saw before. The existing has some angular features to it. The existing is a gray, basically a gray building, and we'll have similar tones. So they certainly are not in conflict, I don't believe, and they're reasonably compatible. But of course, the brand wants to stand alone too, and so I think that accomplishes that as well.
Okay, now, the mechanicals for the building, where will they be located?
They will be located on the roof. Again, if you can see my cursor here, the actual roof line is about in this area right here. The mechanicals will all be behind these higher elements here.
And therefore, they will not be visible to pedestrians that may be at either of the two properties or to passing motorists. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and can you indicate also where we are proposing signage on this building?
Signage is on the front and the back on this upper plane of the building, Town Place Suites Marriott.
Okay, and you're aware that the township ordinance allows only 30 square feet of signage. Our signage exceeds the 30 feet, does it not?
It does, sir.
Okay, and if we were to try to comply with the ordinance and put a 30-square foot sign on the building, given its location within the site, would it be visible?
It would be much less visible, and Marriott Corporate really, with all due respect, is going to dictate the size of their signs.
I mean,
no, they're not. No, that's not the way it works. Yeah. See, we get to decide that. But how big is the sign? He's talked about how much the sign can be, but nobody's even identified how big the sign is.
Yeah, I can go ahead. These taller letters are 2 feet high. The whole distance from the lower Marriott to the upper is about 4.5 feet. The whole distance from Town Place to the end of Suites is approximately 31 feet.
Okay, so I'll let you do the math. How big is the sign?
The sign then is going to be approximately,
Sounds like it's gonna be 80.
No, well,
no, it's going to be,
about 146. That was the math that I did.
that sounds,
And they're
right in
allowed
the
to have
ballpark.
30?
And
I'm done.
Ken,
Thank you.
approximately, if it were to be a 30-square-foot sign, looking at the sign that's there now, how much of that sign would be available for 30 at 30 square feet?
In comparison to what we see as far as an area?
Yeah, if we were only going to put a 30-square-foot sign there, how much of that?
It'd be approximately this area only right here.
Okay. And again, Mr. Ford will get into greater detail. This building does not front on Davidson Avenue, does it?
No, it does not. It sets to the back.
Okay. And so actually the sign itself is only really visible to somebody when they either get on the site or perhaps if they're traveling in would be northerly direction on Davidson Avenue, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions of this witness.
Any board questions?
Just one question. With regard to the sign, do you have any recommendations as an architect as to the architectural compatibility of that sign, its scale to this design and scale of the building?
Basically what we have shown here, it fits the plane, and that's much part of the reason of the appurtenances that's up on top of the roof. One is to screen the mechanical, and one is to provide identification. And so it's proportioned to that element. Basically what you see is why it is the size that it is. If that answers your question. If it doesn't, I can
For the board to
go
decide.
further. Yes. It certainly is, yes.
Going to my original question.
Yes, sir.
The square footage of this building, how's that compared to the square footage of the parts of the old building that were demolished?
Next witness. He only knows about this building. He doesn't know about the old building. So the next witness will answer that, Mr. Reese.
Any other questions? We'll save the public till the end.
Thank you.
Mr. Ford?
You swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Your name and address, please.
Michael Ford, Ford, 32 Brower Lane, Van Cleef Engineering Associates. Here before this board before.
Mr. Ford, you've appeared and testified before this board both as
He's still licensed, right?
Yeah, I just want to make the record clear. He's been qualified by this board previously, both as a licensed engineer and as a professional planner, and will be rendering testimony in both of those areas. Is that correct, Mr. Ford?
Correct.
And you've testified before this board previously as a planner, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Ford, you have been involved with this project since the applicant acquired the property back in about 2013 or 14, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and as a matter of fact, when we made our first submission to Franklin Township on this application, it was in 2014.
Yeah, I actually wasn't part of the application at that point, but that's correct. That's when they made the first application.
Okay, and then you came on board both to obtain some of the administrative approvals that we had with the existing hotel, and then also to prepare the site plan for the new hotel. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and there is an exhibit that's on the screens, and can you indicate what that exhibit is?
That's sheet 2 in the set of plans, the existing conditions overlaid over top of an aerial photo of the site.
Okay. Can you take the board through what's there and also what was, if you can show it on the exhibit, what was removed already at the subject property?
Yes. Okay. This screen all right for everybody? This is All right, this is Route 287. On the right-hand side, Davidson Avenue is along the bottom of the page, and then the on-ramp to 287 from Easton Avenue is in the upper left-hand corner. The site is, I'll say, somewhat of a triangular shape, basically having frontage on 3 roads, even the on-ramp, and just one side lot line adjacent to an office building just to the north of the site. The existing hotel is centered in the property and shown on this exhibit. The 11-story portion is this smaller portion right in the middle, and then there's lower stories surrounding it, including 2 wings of the hotel. And then what I'm outlining now is the existing portion of the hotel, the pre-existing portion of the hotel that was removed, which is the 3-story portion paralleling Davidson Avenue. And what may have caused you to think what's going up is much bigger than what was there before it. There was also a wing of a portion of the hotel behind that portion that went along Davidson Avenue. And the net result in building footprint is about in excess of 25,000 square feet less of building coverage, which is the building footprint. So this footprint is larger than the footprint of the new building going in, which is, narrower. Overall, in totality on the site.
And on that site there, where's the new hotel going?
There's another exhibit. I'm sorry, before you flip. Yeah, let me show you. The new hotel is going in this area, backing up onto the access ramp where there's 2 tennis courts right now. So it'll be over top of the 2 tennis courts and a portion of the parking.
Well, that was good. Do that again.
Yeah, there you go.
You stopped it.
Can you flip back and forth? You want to flip back and forth so I can see?
Yeah,
there you go. What's highlighted in green right behind the new hotel is an existing stormwater management detention basin.
But the new hotel basically will be going over what are the tennis courts now, and then taking out some of the parking spaces adjacent to the tennis courts. Is that correct?
Correct.
And was it our intent to add any new parking spaces around where the old hotel was?
No.
All right.
Maybe I can just, while we're on that subject, what's shown here is they're not crop circles. This is a patio area where the portions of the existing hotel were removed. There's an outdoor, I'll say, hardscape that's been approved through the administrative site plan process at the technical review committee, and that's about to go to construction. And that's part and parcel to the existing renovations to the existing hotel.
So if you're building over the parking spaces.
Oh no, that's not over top of parking.
No, the new hotel.
Oh, the new. Okay. Yeah.
You're not going to replace those parking centers?
Correct.
Now the main hotel has a catering facility. It has more than just the hotel guests. So you're going to have enough parking per code?
We got another witness for that, Mr. Reese. We'll have.
We got a lot of witnesses. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Again, briefly, before we go to the new hotel, what are the renovations that we are making to the existing hotel so that the board can understand what the existing hotel will look like once it is complete?
It actually is just about complete now. You'll see the exterior's been renovated. There's been interior renovations throughout. And then as far as exterior, the outside, the parking lot is being enhanced and improved and repaired. That is, the existing parking spaces and the pavement that's in disrepair has been repaired to be completely restriped. And that's also been vetted through the technical review committee administrative site plan process. And then the parking area lighting will be replaced with new efficient LED lights to provide proper and adequate lighting, but also in a more efficient, economical manner.
Okay. Now take us to the new hotel and what we are proposing with respect to the new hotel.
Okay, so the new hotel is basically aligned with that on-ramp to 287. Moments ago, we were talking about that sign on the facade of the building. That would be right over top of this entrance to the building here. And
So it would be basically not too visible from Davidson.
correct. It's quite a distance from Davidson. There's two existing driveways now. None of those driveways are being changed. No changes to our access from Davidson Avenue. It's this main access right by the porte cochere for the existing hotel, and then there's another existing access south just where Davidson crosses over 287.
Where the entrance closer to the new hotel is, what's the distance from Davidson Avenue? Do you know roughly what the distance is?
The new hotel is about 300 feet long, so that's, I'll say, more than 300, probably close to 500 feet from Davidson.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then outdoor amenities, which was mentioned, was an outdoor pool at the rear of the new hotel, which is right behind the hotel, and then there's an access route around the entire perimeter of the hotel for emergency vehicles.
The pool's different than the retention basin, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a pool and we have a pond.
Yeah. Now your back exit, because I've been through it, is right at the edge of the bridge of the highway.
This one.
Yeah, it's really a dangerous turn out of there.
Yeah.
Because cars coming on Davidson can't get a good view of people coming out of that driveway. It's right alongside the parkway there. I would think you would need some kind of improvement on that.
Traffic and
we'll
we're not
have
changing
Another
traffic,
witness,
but
yes,
yeah.
yeah, I'll wait, yeah.
He's learning. Okay, but just for the record right now, that driveway is an existing driveway and has been in place since the hotel was initially
Right.
constructed. And at least as of today, we're not proposing any changes
Correct.
to that driveway.
No changes.
Okay.
And our only real, I'll say, alternatives for access are Davidson. Obviously, we can't have access to any of the other frontage roads, 287 or the on-ramp.
Okay. Now, Mr. Ford, let's go back to the new hotel. How is refuse being handled at that hotel?
There's a trash enclosure being proposed to be, I think one of the comments we received in one of the review reports, that it be architecturally matching the new hotel, and we would do that.
Okay. And so garbage or trash for the new hotel will be handled at the new hotel?
Correct.
The existing hotel has an existing trash area, and that's going to remain unchanged. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, is there any pedestrian access between the two buildings? If somebody was staying at the new hotel and wanted to go to the bar at the old hotel and have a drink or have dinner, have we provided for people to safely get from one hotel to the other?
Yes, and actually this was, I think, discussed even through one of our various meetings at the administrative site plan level. We're providing, right now there's the porte cochere to the main existing hotel with a circular drop-off. There's a series of parking here that'll be restriped for handicap parking. That'll have, a walkway along it leading from the main entry to the existing hotel, and that walkway will continue with a crosswalk to the new hotel.
Okay. Now, with respect to the impervious coverage, there was a question by Mr. Reese concerning the building and whether we were putting more or less building on the property, and
Right.
you indicated we reduced building by about 20-some thousand square feet. How does the impervious coverage sit between the old hotel and what we're proposing?
There's an actual net reduction in the total impervious coverage, about a third of an acre. We've been through, and we're in the process of securing the DNR Canal Commission approval. They've agreed to our stormwater management design.
Okay, and at the current time, there is a stormwater management system in place at the subject property?
Yes, there's an existing detention basin Along that access to the 287, one of the review comments we received from the DNR Canal Commission was to have that inspected. We did an inspection. We identified some maintenance and repairs that need to be done to that, and that would be done as, should this application be approved and they proceed.
And basically, that same system will then be used to handle the stormwater management for the entire project.
Right.
Now,
and there'd be no adverse impact to drainage because the net decrease in impervious coverage over the entire site.
Now,
wait a minute, can you just kind of like say that again slowly?
Sure.
I think what you're saying is that the existing stormwater management system should be adequate because we're going to have less impervious coverage. Is that what you said?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, we'll be, performing maintenance to an existing detention basin that's been there since the original hotel was built and is in need of repair,
Okay, so
removal of vegetation, some
right,
trees
so
have grown in there. Yeah.
So you're gonna clean that up as well.
Correct.
Okay.
okay. Now, right now, as far as a freestanding sign, there is currently a freestanding sign in place at what we call the main entrance. Is that correct?
Yes, right about this location.
Okay. And it is intended that that sign is going to remain exactly where it is. We're not looking to change. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
And it is our intention to identify both hotels on the one sign.
That's correct.
And we're not making the sign bigger. We're going to just use what's existing in its existing location.
That's correct.
Okay.
Speak to that briefly. So the plans that we had last reviewed, so your plans dated August 29th had the sign in a non-conforming location.
Right.
Was that plan incorrect?
Yes, and the plans we submitted to your department dated October 5th. I don't think we've had a review on it yet. Actually, already addressed many of the review comments we received, including the correction in the location of that sign.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking, just so
Right.
we're clear,
We're not
is
proposing to move it.
Yeah, those plans came in basically when these reports were due, so the staff didn't have a chance to review those.
Sure. Yeah.
So to some degree, some of these, so you just want to make sure you clarify.
Let me do that right now. As I indicated earlier, we've been working on this for a rather extensive period of time. We submitted an application. We've had meetings with staff. We made a revised submission earlier this summer, which generated some staff reports. Based on those staff reports, we made a resubmission on October 5th. That October 5th resubmission actually addresses many of the, if not all of the comments that were in the staff reports, and quite frankly, some of the staff reports I just got yesterday. But basically, we've addressed almost all of those. But unfortunately, the Township Engineering Department and the consultants haven't had an opportunity to review the latest submission. But I can, indicate that I think we've addressed all these comments, and Mr. Ford will get into that. But we've taken great pains to try to deal with those. But the last submission was a little over 10 days ago, and the plans are rather extensive, and it does take time for the staff to review it. But as far as the sign is concerned, we're keeping the sign exactly where it is. We're not making it bigger, and we're going to identify both hotels on the same size, on the same message portion of the sign. Dealing with the reports, just so we can get through that real quickly, Mr. Ford. There was a report generated by Mr. Russo from CME, who is the township's consulting engineer, correct?
Correct.
And that report was dated October 11th, 2018?
Correct.
Okay, and just for the record, I received the report yesterday and turned it over to Mr. Ford. And Mr. Ford, you've had an opportunity to review that report, have you not?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and the revised plans that you submitted to the township on October 5th dealt with most of the comments contained in that report?
Yes, yeah, the October 11th report repeats many of the comments in a prior report that we had already received from the CME Associates dated August 20th, 2008.
Okay.
So
And
that's correct.
And to the extent that there are maybe some additional comments that you did not incorporate into your revised plans, you can make those revisions and incorporate those comments into a new set of revised plans.
Correct.
And with respect to those comments, do any of them substantially change what the board is looking at this evening as far as the site plan, or are most of them technical details and technical information?
They're virtually all technical details. There's no substantive changes that impacted the overall layout of the site plan.
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
Items 16 and 17. This is technical, but it looks like you have to make a particular request.
16 and 17 is to do with the size of the plans.
Yeah.
Right. That's you're right. I would say we technically a waiver from this board to provide site plans that are 30 inches by 42 inches, the next size up, please.
I
Yes.
just felt that.
Yes. No, I appreciate that.
And for the record, the plans that you submitted are 30 by 42s, correct?
Correct.
And which are bigger in size than what the new requirements are, is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah, if we went to smaller sheets, we'd have to either, because of the size of the property, it's almost 14 acres, we'd have to either reduce the scale, make it harder to read, or then split up the site onto multiple sheets, which make it maybe more difficult to read. So I don't think that there's any objection, and I haven't received any comments from the engineer that there's something inappropriate about the scale or
I
the
didn't
size.
sense that,
Right.
but it looked like technically you needed a waiver.
Correct.
They do have a number of variances that are laid out in my report.
I will get to those.
No, I understand. As far as the item indicated in number, what was it, 16, that talks about the setback of the parking lot, I don't believe they're changing the location of the parking lot whatsoever. So you're not adding new parking within 5 feet of the property line.
No, we're not.
Correct.
Yes, I would say that's not a variance.
Right. Yeah, the limits of the parking, the proximity to the property line, the existing buffers along the property boundary, track boundary with regards to the parking are remaining unchanged. Actually, and maybe here's the clarification, Mr. Healy, is he might be referring to the fact that we're proposing a subdivision to create a lot with the new hotel separate and apart from the lot with the existing hotel. And because there's a lot line between the two properties and that goes through a parking lot, that parking is actually straddles the property line. So it's a technical,
Yeah, I
might
guess
be a
maybe that's
technical variance.
But that's, I
Right.
think you have to explain the subdivisions for the board to
Yeah.
get what
Maybe
you're
we
talking
do
about.
that next.
Yeah, I was going to get to that when I get to your report. The bottom line then is, with respect to the CME report, then either we have already complied with everything in this report or will comply with it.
Correct.
Okay. Now, moving on.
Except you want a waiver for the size thing.
The size of the sheets.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, he just points out that we technically
okay.
need one. Yeah, he didn't object to it. And we're not proposing or asking for any relief that he had an objection to.
No,
Okay.
we
Yeah.
understand that.
No,
Okay.
okay, I just,
Okay. Mr. Ford, as a result of this application, we are trying to put the new hotel on its own lot, separate and apart from the hotel that currently exists. Is that correct?
correct.
And this is a property that's in the CB zone, correct?
Correct.
And the minimum lot requirements of the CB zone are,
5 acres
okay, and how big is the overall parcel?
is 13.98.
Okay. But the way we're laying out, and perhaps you can, and it's a little bit hard to see, but you may want to point out on the board where we're creating the subdivision line to create the lot for the hotel, the new hotel.
Yes, okay. All right, this is a that really came out, I might be standing in a spot where you can really hear it well. This is a subdivision for, essentially for financing. So you can separate the two projects, finance the new hotel apart and separate from the existing hotel.
So the owners are going to be, the owners of both properties are, it's going to be the same ownership of both properties?
At this time, yes, that is
All right.
correct.
Are you planning to have the same management of the two hotels?
They will be under two separate flags. They will be managed separately, but there will be cross-access, and Mr. Ford will get into it, there's going to be cross-access easements, so people are free to park on either side, and cross-parking easements. So in essence, other than a lot line on paper, you know, everybody can go everywhere on the site. There will be no change other to what's there right now.
So there won't be curbs created to keep the property separated. So, because one of my concerns is, and I know that this is not the witness for this, but the whole parking thing is, we're reducing the number of spots, and I guess I have some concern about that, but we'll wait to hear from the person who's going to testify about that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, the lot line will be seen in the tax office on a tax map. Other than that, the site will function as one hotel with free and unfettered ability to drive between the two sites, walk between the two sites.
Right, so let me trace the property, proposed property line. It basically follows the parking area that would be associated with the new hotel. It's just in excess of 3 acres, and then the remaining 9+ acres would be part of the lot with the existing hotel. There'd be cross-access easements to allow for utilities, pedestrian access, vehicle access, shared use of the parking area. That would be a legal document prepared by Mr. Lanford's office. And then so that's one of our technical variances, the lot area. We're proposing a 3-acre lot with the new hotel where 5 acres is required. And because technically this state highway ramp is road frontage, there's a rear lot setback variance for the existing hotel to the new property line. So that's one of our other bulk variances. There's also...
But the rear yard, just to clarify, the rear yard setback is actually to
is on our own property.
Is on our own property to the parking lot.
Correct.
Okay.
And then there is a technical variance for impervious coverage. However, like I stated earlier, the actual net overall impact of this project would be to reduce the impervious coverage on the overall property. But because of the proposed lot lines, there is a technical variance for the proposed lot 1.03 of 70%, where 65 is allowed, or 55 is allowed.
Let me just translate that. So since the variance for 70.9 is created by the fact that and that's for the new hotel? Is that correct?
That's lot 3. I'd have to look at the map. Yeah, I think it is, yes. Let me get factual here for you.
Actually, I think it's for the existing. So you're saying that that's technical because the overall, the net difference of the two proposed lots is less than what's existing now. And that variance is only created by the fact that you're kind of carving out one portion of the site, so you're only measuring that one portion.
And more of the existing green space, if you will, is going with the lot with the new hotel.
Okay.
Overall, if you were to make this just one lot?
Right now, overall, today, we're at just under 69%, and we go down to about 66%. Max is 55 in this zone.
So you're still going to
We're still over.
You would still need...
Right. But because so much of the green space goes with the new lot, with the new hotel, that hotel actually, that lot with the smaller lot complies. It's at 51%.
So maybe we'll just approve half of this.
while we're on that kind of, I think a similar analysis, so you also need, sorry to jump your presentation here, Mr. Lanford, but you also need floor area ratio variances. Can you provide a similar comparison to what exists or what exists now, what previously existed versus what is proposed now in terms of floor area ratio?
Yes. As I stated earlier, the building coverage is being reduced by about 25,000 square feet. The overall floor area on the site is being reduced by a little better than 67,000 square feet. Today, the overall site has a floor area ratio of 0.59, where 0.4 is allowed. And the net result of that reduction would put us down to just under 0.5, or about 0.49. And then that is actually fairly balanced between the two sites. The lot with the smaller hotel on it is 0.47, and the larger hotel, or the existing hotel, is 0.49. So we're still in excess of 4.4.
So just to explain what floor area ratio is, that is the amount of square footage of all of the building space, all of the floors in both of the buildings.
Correct.
Divided by the square footage of the lot.
Right, so
you're
we're
saying the pre-existing was what again?
Was 0.59, almost 0.6, where 0.4 is allowed, and essentially we're going to about 0.49. So we're reducing it by about 0.1.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and that's reducing the intensity on the overall lot.
Now you said it's going to go from 5.9 to
no, 0.59.
Okay,
to
that's what I
0.49.
Missed.
Yes,
All right.
yeah. Sorry. For some reason, we do floor area ratio instead of percent, like percent coverage, 100%, 200%. Probably be easier if we just said we're going from 59% to 49% floor area ratio.
But then it's no longer a ratio.
Okay, and also, we did reduce the parking from what was previously there to what's proposed.
Correct.
And Ms. Dolan will opine on the parking, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, do you have someone, Mr. Healy suggested that you have someone testify as to how the parking's working out now, and whether there's, well, not now because you've got the one building closed, but before they closed it, how was the parking doing before, and now we're going to have a reduction, so we have to have some idea, was there room for everybody to park? Do we have that testimony coming or not?
Ms. Dolan, I think, could testify a little bit in historical perspective and also need of parking, and I think we've got that covered. We did have a meeting with Mr. Healy to go over some of these things before we got here this evening, a week or two ago. We reviewed Mr. Healy's concerns, and I think Ms. Dolan can adequately address those concerns. All right, before we move on, we did receive a report from Mr. House. That was dated August 16th, 2018, which was also provided to me yesterday. You've reviewed that report?
Yes.
And we'll meet with Mr. House and resolve all of his concerns?
To his satisfaction.
Okay. And we will also satisfy the report of Mr. Cianfrani, correct?
Correct.
And I think I will recall Mr. Ford very briefly to give an opinion as to the granting of those variances after Ms. Dolan testifies as to the parking issue. So I will not ask any other planning questions of Mr. Ford at this moment. I will recall him after Ms. Dolan testifies.
Okay, if there are no board questions, go.
I have questions. Where is the loading zone?
For which hotel?
The new hotel.
None.
No loading zone.
Now, I'll let the architect testify as to whether loading zones are typical in these types of hotels as opposed to a full-service hotel.
Basically, no, they would not be typical. The products that are coming in would not require the type of vehicles that would need such a facility.
All right, so where does the linen truck drop off the linens?
Linen truck would drop off the linens. Basically, you know, once all the product is there and delivered, all of that activity is done within the building. All the laundry is done within the building. So you're talking about just supply type products. Of a small, small nature,
All right,
detergents
so-
and laundry. And
So
things
there's
like that.
washing machines
Yes.
someplace in the building.
Yes, ma'am.
And what about paper goods delivery, food delivery? I know they have food there. Limited food. I've been in there, in that.
Yes. Basically just dropped off
So it goes right through the front door, I guess.
just by vans, yes.
All right, so how does trash get into the trash enclosure?
Trash enclosures located beyond the rear right-hand corner of the new hotel, so they could come right out the back down that paved access lane for fire. There's also a walkway down along this portion of the parking lot.
All right,
So
so
that's-
it's going
so
to be in a
out the back.
wheeled container?
Yes, wheeled out by the employees.
All right, there's just no sidewalk connection to the parking lot and a curb cut. In the paved access area, they'd have to go around a gate, I assume.
Right. We can incorporate a fixed sidewalk back to there. Yeah, I thought there was a sidewalk, because there's a side entry to the hotel where there's a sidewalk. And I thought the sidewalk went all the way back because we have people parking back here too. So we can extend that sidewalk not only to the trash enclosure, but for a better pedestrian access from the parking lot. There's
Okay.
a short section of sidewalk, sure.
All right, and just an observation on the plan, the circulation to the hotel is a little awkward. There's no gracious way to get right to the front door. You're kind of making a left and then a right and then another right. It could be confusing. I don't know if you have wayfinding signage proposed. I know the parking lot's in very poor condition. Maybe in the future, the hotel would want to look at that again, since they have to spend money to fix up the parking lot.
The parking lot it has been fixed. I mean, we've been repaving. I think we're almost all done, yeah. And we had that discussion this morning, and actually, we looked at the plan this morning and felt that it probably would be appropriate when people come on site to put a small directional sign right here at this island to direct people to the new hotel so that they wouldn't have to go all the way around. They can come in and go through here, down, I'm sorry, down
Gotta
this
make a
way.
left, yep.
And go to the hotel. So,
Just the way you did your finger there, that's just a really great example of what she's talking about.
but
I would just suggest that you look at that. It would be nice to have a more direct way to get there, be more welcoming.
we can, we talked about putting signage to make it, if there's other things that we can do to make it more attractive, we'll take a look at that. But when we met this morning to review everything, we didn't realize that it is a little bit confusing, and there needs to be directional signage on site, and we will put them in the appropriate places, subject to the review of staff.
Total reconfiguration.
Right.
Well, if they're gonna totally reconfigure it,
that's a whole
they need to
different story.
figure that out
Yeah.
and present the plan to you.
Yeah, if it's a total
Sure, it could be done
reconfiguration,
administratively.
They could. They could. If it didn't create any variances, they could.
Yeah. Right now, our thought is directional signage, but we could take a look at it.
Any other questions? Okay, next.
Ms. Stolen.
You swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you give me an address, please?
Elizabeth Dolan, D-O-L-A-N, Dolan and Dean Consulting, 181 West High Street in Somerville, New Jersey.
Ms. Dolan, you are a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey specializing in traffic,
Yes,
and have you appeared before this board previously?
many times.
Okay,
Go ahead.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Dolan, in this application, you have actually prepared a initial report on January 15th, 2018. You did a subsequent report on September 4th, 2018, and then we had a subsequent meeting with Mr. Healy to discuss some traffic concerns, and then prepared again a supplemental report dated October 4th, 2018, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. First of all, let's start with the two hotels. The two hotels are two different products and two different types of hotels, are they not?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and basically for calculating parking, are the hotels treated the same or treated differently?
They're treated differently, specifically by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They are defined as either all suites or business hotel for the new hotel, and then a classic hotel for the existing hotel with the various amenities, meeting and banquet space.
Okay, and to sort of answer Mr. Shepard's question, were you familiar with the subject property, and have you been to the property on occasion prior to being engaged to represent the applicant in this application?
Yes, having gone to Rutgers, I graduated in '86. I had been there for different social events. I also had a wedding there in 1988, and my sister had a wedding there in, I think, 1995. So those specific functions, when the hotel was a Marriott and fully functioning. And I'm sure I was there at a few other events, but those are the specifics.
Okay, and when you did your analysis for this application, what are the factors that you had to consider with respect to both of these hotels in determining, first of all, the parking requirements, and then B, the actual parking requirements and needs?
For the parking requirements, we assume that the hotels are 100% occupied. And the ordinance also makes us look at the public space. So I think that's how it was defined earlier. These meeting, banquet rooms, the restaurant, bar space. So there's an assumption that all of the rooms are occupied with a ratio of 1.1 space applied to every room, and then another added amount of parking based on the capacity of the public spaces. So we assume that all of the space is occupied and all of the rooms are occupied for the parking calculation.
And what was the calculation for the public spaces? Was it also 1.1?
It was one space for every 3 people.
All right.
Yeah, and so the architect and I think it was the architect came up with, we had a tally of all the different rooms in the building. I think it was a different architect, not this architect. And it came out to 1,150 people. So when we divide that by 3, that's 383 spaces for that public area. And then we've got a total of 426 rooms, and at 1.1, it's 469. So it's it's a cumulative parking requirement based on those 2 categories.
And that's both hotels together?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me, so let's just make sure we have the right figures, because there are still some different figures in the
Oh,
application.
I'm sorry. I was just reading from, that's correct. When Mr. Lanford said I had a September 4th and an October 4th, I was reading from the September, and it was updated in the October 4th. So let me just correct that, because it's 426 rooms at 1.1 is 469. That's consistent. But we had reevaluated the public space to 1,200 people, and so that was a requirement of 400. So thank you, Mr. Healy. I was reading from the wrong.
And there was another, I think the other report, or the thing from the architect actually had 1,230. So my calculation of required parking was based on that 1,230, and then you had the requirements for the rooms. And just to be clear, you're mentioning public spaces. There's a relatively large 1,200-seat banquet and conference facility on the site. That's what you're talking about when you're talking about these public spaces,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And the parking requirement, similar, this is a very standard parking requirement that you see in, frankly, most zoning ordinances, similar to parking requirements for restaurants. It's one parking space for every 3 seats in that banquet facility. So when we're talking about public spaces, that's what you're talking about?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Right, and as I said before, we're assuming that all of that public space, banquet space, is being occupied to its full extent, at the same time that the 2 hotels are 100% occupied. Where in reality, based on ITE data, 70% occupancy is typical in the hotels. I've heard testimony in other hotel applications, 80%, 70 to 80%. And speaking of the banquet facilities, for example, having been there, for example, there's 5 sections of the banquet room. They can break it down into 5 rooms. So for a wedding, for example, one of those sections would be set up for the cocktail hour, and then that same group of people might move into 2 more sections for the dinner portion. So the people are moving from location to location, and some of the people may be staying at the hotel because they're attending a wedding or other function, or if it's during the week, it may be for classes or conferences. I know for continuing education credits, we had the same type of setup down at the place at the end of Davidson Avenue, where they had the conference area set up, but then they also had a portion of the area set up for lunch. So the people are moving between the different areas as opposed to all of the areas being occupied at this rate of, intensity that the ordinance requires. So we're asked to calculate the maximum based upon 100% occupancy of all areas and all buildings, but in reality, people are moving between those different areas, and so you don't have 100% occupancy of all portions of all buildings.
What is ITE data?
ITE data says 60 to 70% occupancy is typical for.
What does ITE stand for?
I'm sorry, Institute of Transportation Engineers.
Oh, those guys.
Those guys, those
Okay.
traffic guys, yes.
They wrote the book.
Right.
Okay. Ms. Dolan, in addition to the fact that, for example, as you mentioned, in a wedding, the entire space is usually not used at one time because they move between one part of the room to another part of the room. Part of your calculations, there are meeting rooms within that lower level, in addition to the banquet rooms. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
For business meetings and things of that nature. And you calculated, again, that those rooms would be fully occupied at the same time, correct?
That is correct.
And is it, usually I would assume that weddings take place either Friday nights, Saturdays, or Sundays, and I would assume business meetings don't take place Friday nights, Saturdays, or Sundays. So very typically, if there's weddings or other social functions going on, the meeting rooms that are used for business meetings are not normally occupied. Is that a fair statement?
I would say that's a fair statement, yes.
Okay. Now, in addition to the fact that, well, first of all, can you compare the number of parking spaces that we currently have as opposed to what was there before? How much of a diminution did we have in parking?
Well, we're losing 50 parking spaces on the property, but we're also reducing the number of rooms. I think what the calculation that I like best is taking the total number of spaces that were there originally with the total number of rooms that were there originally, and it calculates out to 1.58 spaces per room. And the ratio that we're going to is 1.55 spaces per room. So it's 1.5 per room.
So it's a little better?
It's
No.
It's virtually the same, but no, it would be just slightly less. It goes from 1.58 to 1.55.
Okay.
Right.
And with respect to again, the township's assumptions are that everything is occupied at one time.
Correct.
Okay. Based on the ITE numbers and based on also practical experience and knowledge, do you have an opinion as to the parking spaces that we are providing for this site? Do they and will they function?
let me start with the ITE. Again, the Institute of Transportation Engineers has a publication called Parking Generation. And in that publication, they provide information about parking demands and parking supplies for different types of hotels. And the business hotel, or the new hotel that's proposed on site, the extended stay type of suites hotel, has a typical demand of 0.6 spaces per room, whereas a standard hotel has a demand of approximately 1.2 per room. You would expect a greater parking demand at a full-service hotel that has the amenities inclusive of the restaurant, the meeting rooms, the banquet rooms. There's also something in the ITE's hotel research that says that the average parking supply at full-service hotels is 1.3. So 1.3, and they've got a typical demand of 1.2. We've got 1.5 for all of the different rooms that are proposed on site. Theoretically, a standalone extended stay hotel would need less parking, but in reality, I would think that someone could choose to stay at this extended stay hotel if they were attending a function, class, wedding, or something at the full-service hotel. So I don't think it's necessarily appropriate in this setting to discount the parking demand that may be needed at this extended stay hotel. I think that a 1.5 per room ratio is excellent, comfortable, and certainly consistent with the historic amount of parking that's been here.
So if I use my little calculator, not ITE, JPR, and so if you have 426 rooms times 1.58, that's 673 spots, right? Not counting the catering hall, which requires another 400 spots. According to your memo here, that's over 1,000 spots.
Well, the requirement is 469 plus 400, or 869, and we're proposing 659.
So even you go with those figures, so eliminate having 210 less parking spots than the 659 you say. I mean, the 869 that are required, that's a pretty big ratio, deficit of parking.
We've got a deficit of 210 spaces based on ordinance.
With all the cases we've heard here, I've never seen such a large deficit.
Well, the original hotel had a deficit of parking. The original hotel didn't provide the 1.1 per room plus another 400.
Yeah, but the planning board, the zoning board then didn't do the homework correctly.
That's assuming the original hotel had an issue.
Yeah.
And again,
I'm talking about what you want to do right now with the two hotels.
Well, from my perspective, the overall ratio of 1.5 spaces per room would satisfy the demands associated with all the facilities, if you will, on the property.
But it doesn't come close to what's required.
Well, it doesn't, but...
ITE or whatever you...
Well, correct, but based on your ordinance, there's a cumulative requirement. Many ordinances recognize that a full-service hotel has amenities and will have a parking ratio per room, period. There wouldn't be an added requirement for the public space.
And I, too, have been at the old Marriott Hotel, ballroom of people, provided, and very hard to find parking in those days. When you have a huge, full ballroom of 1,200 people, whatever, the old one, very hard to find parking.
The only other thing that, in addition to, I would say is a conservative ordinance, is the evolution, if you will, of the transportation. People coming from out of town, whether they're maybe coming by train or the coming into the airport, as opposed to renting cars, often take Uber, Lyft, and in this case, the hotel also is providing a shuttle service. So not everyone is as auto-dependent as they were 10, 20 years ago. So those types of things help to reduce the parking demand.
And in your opinion, based on the review of the ITE numbers, based on your experience in analyzing other hotels, do you have an opinion as to whether there is adequate parking on this site to operate and function properly with the number of parking spaces that we are providing?
Certainly, based on ITE, I believe that there's a more than enough parking on this site. When we look at other of these extended stay suites type hotels, the number is 1 per room. So we've got 1.5 for all rooms on the site. And I said I think that that's a fair evaluation, because I would expect the people at the extended stay to also be using the amenities at the full service hotel.
Thank you.
Just as a comment regarding the parking, I'm asking, I'm going to make a statement and see if you agree. If there were a parking problem and every space were full, wouldn't we assume, first of all, that the people staying on the premises would be there and already parked, so that the inconvenience would fall to the people coming to the public places like the restaurant?
Right, you're assuming that both hotels are 100% occupied.
Right. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to really oversimplify this. I guess then if I'm the person coming to dinner, I can't find a parking place there. There's no place in the area that you can park on the street and walk there. I'd turn around and come home.
I would agree with that.
It's not that there's going to be a dangerous situation created someplace, or someone's going to be double parked on Davidson Avenue, or they're not coming to dinner at a place formerly like the Marriott to park across the street and walk.
Correct. I wouldn't do that. I don't think most people would.
Well, for better or for worse.
The parking being ending up being an issue.
Well, for better or for worse, I mean, there are other parking lots in the area. I mean, there's a gigantic parking lot for the Ukrainian Center right across the street. And I say better for worse because realistically, honestly, if I'm going to an event, if there's a wedding, I'm not turning around and going home if I'm invited to a wedding, and I'm probably going to park across the street. For better or for worse.
That's true, but the weddings are more atypical times, so there might not be that overflow.
Or if it's a conference during the week.
People are going to park across the street in the Ukrainian thing if they're quote dressed for a wedding and walk across.
I'm just saying for better or for worse, because there are spaces within very close walking distance, but then you may have some people crossing the road.
As a practical matter, Mr. Healy, I would think, first of all, for that to occur, you would have to assume that both hotels were 100% occupied and that every room was maxed out. But if the owner of the hotel knew that was in fact going to happen, I would assume that he would arrange for off-site parking. He does have the shuttle ability to bring people from across the street back to the hotel, and he would know that in advance. So he would
have the ability to institute a shuttle service.
Right. Is there going to be valet parking?
It's not intended to be valet parking, no.
I mean, for the banquet events.
I do not believe there is at this point.
Okay, because a lot of hotels do have that, major hotels.
No, right now it's not intended.
I hope you have the problem.
Yeah, right.
The requirements contemplate staff, and they can. I mean, we can designate where they park, but the parking requirements pursuant to your ordinance would contemplate occupants plus staff plus use of public facilities.
Any other? You finished?
I am finished with this witness.
Any other questions?
I just need to recall Mr. Ford very briefly.
I just want to, what's the total reduction of parking spaces?
50 spaces, and a reduction of 22 rooms.
Which is almost a wash. in terms of-
Correct. Which is why the ratio works out to be about the same.
158 as opposed to 155.
Yes, very good.
Mr. Chairman, just one more question. The fact that the new hotel is a different product and is physically, I mean, it's on the same site, but physically separated a little bit, does that affect your opinion? I mean, do people, would it be more or less reasonable to assume that the people attending one of the events at the conference or banquet facilities might stay at the extended stay as opposed to the full service?
Yeah, I have assumed that. I said earlier that while a lower parking ratio is applicable to that type of hotel, it wouldn't be in this setting, because I do believe if I have the choice of a standard hotel room or a hotel room that might have a seating area and a refrigerator and a microwave, I might be inclined to take the extended stay type room, even though I'm attending an event in the hotel. So in this particular case, I would not say that it's appropriate to apply the ITE 0.6 ratio per room to this. I'm more comfortable with having 1.5 across the board for all rooms. So whether that ratio means you have 1.6 for the full service and 1.4 for the extended stay, I don't think it matters. All the parking is shared. There's cross access and circulation. So in this particular case, I would say I wouldn't want to skimp on the parking and rely on 0.6 per room or even 1 per room, because I do believe there's going to be cross activity, and that's why we've also incorporated the pedestrian connection.
Mr. Ford?
Hey.
You previously reviewed in your testimony the bulk variances that we are seeking with respect to this application, correct?
Correct.
And those bulk variances are in fact a function of the subdivision line which we are creating for the purpose of financing the new hotel, correct?
Correct.
And if in fact that lot line wasn't on the plan, would there be any bulk variances that we would be seeking as far as front yard, lot area, or any other setback variances?
No.
Okay, so, and the variances are basically internal to the property themselves and do not affect any other properties, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, with respect to the floor area ratio variance, there is in fact a net reduction in the floor area ratio and impervious coverage from what was previously on the site to the proposed application, is that correct?
Correct.
And with respect to the parking variance that we are seeking, you heard the testimony of Ms. Dolan concerning the ITE counts, her observations, and her conclusions with respect to the parking variance. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
Do you feel, first of all, that the bulk variances can be granted by this board? And do they have any effect on any of the adjoining property owners?
No adverse substantial impact to any of the public or surrounding properties. No.
Okay. And with respect to the floor area ratio variance, while we are still exceeding the ordinance as it currently exists today, by reconfiguring the site, by making the new building, reducing the footprint and going up, we are actually decreasing the overall floor area ratio than was there before.
Correct.
And again, do you feel that the board can grant that variance, and would that variance have any detrimental impact on the zone scheme, zone plan, or would it adversely affect any of the property values of adjoining properties?
Not in my opinion, and it's actually in line with the 0.5 FAR where hotels are allowed in other zones, the M1 and M2.
Okay.
And we're providing a more visually attractive layout by removing a older, outdated, non-functional portion of the existing hotel up close to Davidson Avenue, replacing it with a more attractive functional hotel further away from the road, and opening up that view from Davidson Avenue of the remodeled, enhanced, visually attractive hotel with a nice view of it from Davidson Avenue over some open space.
And lastly, based on the testimony of Ms. Dolan, do you have an opinion as to whether the board can grant the parking variance that we are seeking this evening?
I think testimony stands on its own, and the reports that have been provided by Ms. Dolan.
Does that mean you agree or not?
I agree, and I've done the same calculation. We've been through this on other use variances as well. I'll relate it to, say, the religious institutions we've looked at over and over again, where there's, multiple spaces that we have to calc from a parking standpoint as if they're used all at the same time. And I would agree with the chairman. I would hope that for the business operator, they have a problem, but don't see a problem with this layout. And in fact, the layout itself with the distribution of parking, it lends itself well. There was a comment about employees, and we have parking on virtually all sides of the hotel, including the existing hotel in the rear where the employees would likely enter, where there would be more employees for that open space common area service.
You just need a more direct line from Davidson Avenue to the new hotel.
For the driveway.
Yeah.
We can review that.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. I have no further questions.
Are you asking for a sign variance?
Yeah.
For the sign mounted on the new hotel. That's what was part of the architects.
I understand that.
The existing sign we're not changing.
Okay, and can you render an opinion as to the sign? And based on the testimony of our architect, you feel that the sign is appropriate and necessary at the size that we are proposing?
That seems appropriate, and I tried to point out at the very beginning of my testimony, the location of that building puts it so far back from Davidson Avenue.
Yeah.
For it to be functional at all, a sign on that building, I think you would look at it maybe even put perhaps differently if it were located where the pre-existing hotel was up close to Davidson Avenue, but this one's sitting so far back, seems appropriate.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
On the matter of the sign, my opinion is the 30 square feet is really, that's what you get in a shopping center, and you have the multiple tenants, the pizza place, the nail salon. That's the typical. I would even say if you apply the 30 square feet to this building, I think it would look strange. I think it would look strangely small compared to the scale. Whether you feel, the actual variance that's proposed is adequate, but certainly 30 I would think is way too small.
It wouldn't look appropriate.
Yeah, it would look strange. Two other variances, and again, these are very technical, or I should say they're related to the creation of the subdivision. The access, the lot, the proposed subdivision, the proposed lot, for the new hotel is not going to front Davidson. You don't have direct access. You're going to be creating cross-access and parking easements to address that, and then also the sign for the new hotel is actually going to be on the other lot, and that's a variance because you can't have an off-premises sign. So, do you have any opinions about those variances?
Yeah, they're created by virtue of the proposed lot line. So, without the lot line, they wouldn't exist, and they really, just like you don't see the lot line, that distinction is without a difference. It really won't.
There's
impact.
no impact to the public because
No.
it's going to function as one site.
No. Yeah, and the access is going to be covered by the cross-access easements.
Thank you.
As far as the sign goes, I fail to see how it could have any negative impact on anybody. And if it helps someone find the building, then I'm all for it. Where it's located, where it's facing, anybody who sees it's going to be somebody who's actually looking for it. Any other questions? You're done, finally?
That's
Yes.
what I was going to say.
Yes.
We'll open to the public. Anybody wish to say anything or ask a question?
Vince Dominic, I'm the
This is-
Township's Economic Development Coordinator. I'll be real quick since
Name,
really-
address, and we'll swear you in.
Oh, you got to swear me in, that's right.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do. Just one quick thing from a historical perspective. Given that I knew that this testimony was going to be tonight, I don't need to repeat everything that Ms. Doliner. I had the opportunity, I played golf with Frank Hasner today, who was the Economic Development Zoning Officer here for 25 years. I specifically asked him about the site. So get a historical perspective. Besides, every site once in a while has some incredible event that may be parking, but there weren't complaints about the site. The site had always functioned. The site, as proposed now, is a few less rooms, a few less parking spaces, and with the testimony you've heard tonight, with that people drive less with Uber and everything else. If anything, there'll probably be less of a parking demand. So in regard to that, I won't speak on anything, but I urge the board to approve this application tonight.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, real quick question. I have a question for Vince. Different issue. Technically, this required review by the Historic Commission? Is that correct? Or maybe it's a...
Yeah, we were there.
Yes.
What, did they have any comments whatsoever?
No.
None.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make that clear.
Okay, now you're,
Hey, sir, I need to swear you in. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes, sir.
Your name and address, please.
Bill Connell, 25 Spring Street. Regarding the sign, I was just thinking about the Stop and Shop sign, right? And that's a huge sign. That's bigger than 30 square feet, just as an example of something, I don't know, just crossed my mind. My question about the sign is it viewable one side or two? Are you going to do it from just the parking lot or the other side as well?
There's one side on each side of the building.
So it's going to be viewable from across, and you're going to be able to see it toward the new, what's used to be the Econo Lodge? I guess you're going to see it from that side as well? Whatever it is there.
Probably more by the 287 overpass.
It's
I
on
think.
the two long sides of the building,
Yeah.
correct?
My second question is, you're actually asking for a variance for 3 acres when the minimum is 5. Did I hear that correctly?
Correct.
Why don't, instead of giving a variance, do you just not cut out more of the parking lot and do it that way, and do it 5 and, if you said 13, do it 5 and 8? Instead of asking, it just crossed my mind, if it doesn't matter if it's operating as a homogeneous type of thing, just make the hotel or the new hotel 5 acres and give the rest to the old hotel.
Well, it actually works and fits well with the proportion. The two hotels are not of equal size, and the portion of the 9 acres with the existing hotel, albeit it's a property line that no one sees, carves off the parking that would be associated with that level of intensity and that number of rooms with the existing hotel, and the same holds true for the new hotel, the 128 rooms and the parking lot layout.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, which actually brings up that conversation reminded me of your question before. So I think there is this is as technical as it gets. The parking lot is supposed to be set back 5 feet from a property line, and since the property line runs through the parking lot, they don't have the 5-foot setback. So I think that's about as technical as a variance gets and insignificant, but I think that is technically required.
okay, then we'll also close to the public, and then you can close.
Okay, I will be very brief. My client started what he thought was a minor renovation to the hotel in 2013 and has developed, after $25 million, not counting the new building, almost a rebuilt hotel, so that we're going to have updated a new first-class hotel where one of the older hotels previously existed. I think the rooms that we did take out were sort of reminiscent of the old motel-style rooms, which are out of date today. The new hotel, as you could see from the drawings, is a modern hotel typical of what today's market demands. So I do believe what we have proposed makes all the sense. I think the parking we've beaten it to death, but I think Ms. Dolan explained why we have more than enough parking and that the parking works, and I would respectfully request that the site plan be granted, the subdivision be granted, and all of the bulk variances that we are seeking be granted. Thank you.
Any comments, motions?
move that the application be granted, that the variances approved, that the two waivers that were requested be approved, that the site plan and subdivision be approved.
And how about saying something about the driveway into the new space be
We will,
revised?
we will appropriately sign it, and we will look at perhaps modifying some of the,
This looks like a cornfield maze to get there.
we'll take a look at that.
And if you can possibly revise the route, I guess, without messing up the parking calculations, that would be good.
And that's what that's the balance. If we revise it, it may affect parking, but we'll take a look at it.
And the sidewalk connection to the trash enclosure.
We agree.
You have a second?
Second.
Laura Grauman.
Yes.
Donald Johnson. Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Robert Shepherd.
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell. Yes. Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas.
Yes, and I think this represents a significant upgrade on that Easton Avenue interchange with this project and the Travel Lodge project and a couple of the other ones, especially when it's a entrance to the main entrance to the town, which was kind of a rundown area. Anyway, good luck with it, and I hope you have parking problems.
Thank you.
There weren't parking problems before. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.